on my mind a lot. Don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, that's babe, need you every day. You like my oxygen. Make it seem like the barging down. Got my heart no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch. Might wake the neighbors up. Break you in, then break you out. In the end, we're gonna make it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of All Time High. I'm Jim Flint, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Annelise Osborne, an author of a brand new book that actually you can pre-order it right now. If you happen to be at Consensus, you could have gotten a copy.
We had a sold out book signing yesterday. It went really fast.
But you had to wait in line. The line was curved around the edges. It was amazing, the interest level in this particular book. In just a second, though, we're going to talk more about that. But first, a paid political message, if you will, from BitGo. We're coming to you live from the CoinDesk podcast studio presented by BitGo. The company was founded in 2013 with the first institutional-grade Bitcoin wallet. BitGo is the gold standard in custody, staking, and settlement. Today, BitGo supports over 800 coins and processes 20% of all Bitcoin transactions by value. Check them out at bitgo.com. Now, let's talk a lot more about your book.
Thank you for having me, Jim. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to talk with you.
And you also hosted a panel yesterday.
I did.
Yes. And now you're having the conversations and all the different podcasts. Yeah. Were you surprised by the level of interest in the cross section, if you will? Because the name of the book is From Hoodies to Suits. And my take was you had hoodies and suits in line.
So I was very flattered yesterday with the very first. So the book's not out yet. It comes out June 12th. And
on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, really any bookstore. Wiley's the publisher, so they're very good for distribution. There was a line before I got there, and I got there early. And so it was just impressive that this book, which I wrote from the heart, which is called From Hoodies to Suits, Innovating Digital Assets for Traditional Finance. And it really, I was driven to write it because I feel that there needs to be education on really the benefits of blockchain. And I wrote it for the financial and corporate crowd. But what I'm finding is it's a huge hit for the tech crowd as well, because then the tech people are interested in why it actually matters, why this whole financial market is so important, which I go into in the book. So I was very flattered with the line. I had the opportunity to speak to 75 people because that's how many books I had. And it was really a cross section. There was a 16-year-old there who works for a family office who came. And then it was really a lot of people interested in the space. There were definitely more hoodies there than suits that were interested in the book. So I appreciate love everyone's feedback if you have the opportunity to read it.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned that it was a matter of the heart when you wrote the book. And I looked at the dedication and you said, and I want to get this right, to my amazing sons, Rory, Jamie, and Nate. Who are you thinking? Are they the suits or the hoods, or are they going to do both possibly?
I feel like they're more the hoodies than the suits for sure. I have 3 teenage boys that are right now 14, 16, and 18. It was really interesting through the whole GameStop world of the Wall Street bets on Reddit because who's now 18 at the time was 13, and he kept me up to date on what was happening. But it was interesting that a 13-year-old is following this. And so part of like this book is based that you kind of get to at the end is first, there's this amazing technology, but the world is shifting because Millennial and Gen Z are going to be making the financial decisions and they're going to have a majority of the wealth. And so part of this is, for them to understand, but also for just recognizing where the world is going in finance.
Yeah. In fact, in chapter 2, not your words, but Mark Twain's, you quoted, "They did not know it was possible, so they did it anyway." I mean, do you see that kind of transpiring with the generational gaps here?
Absolutely. I think, when my first job was actually in Ukraine, and it was an advertising agency. I was 22 years old. I had no idea what I was doing, but advertising, you're creating brand and image and air. Yeah. And I'm so glad I didn't know that I, as a 22-year-old, wasn't given rules, and I didn't have that corporate mindset. Right. So I was able to dive in and expect a lot more. And so I feel like the same thing with the hoodies. It's if you aren't told you're not supposed to think that way, then you just go out and do it. Right. And so this is kind of an idea for innovation, that can innovation happen in a very set up corporate environment? I think innovation is less likely to happen there, but it's more likely to happen in an environment with less rules or less structure.
Fair enough. And so you've lived in Kiev, London, New York, right? So you've got the perspective of all these different countries. What's your take on how the U.S. has been in terms of its a seeming reluctance to provide that regulatory framework?
Okay. So I think regulation is reactive, not proactive, and regulators are here to protect investors.
Okay.
It is very difficult to innovate innovation, so we'll put that out there to begin with.
Wow. Okay.
I also think that if we call it Web 2, so if the internet boom was really about information, and so information at the time, I guess we're looking at from a privacy perspective, regulating that, but at the time it wasn't regulated because regulation really had to do with securities, money, and value. So investors. And so this is why Web3, if we'll call it that, is looking at really being regulated. I think that it would help if there was more clear guidelines.
Sure.
I do believe that if you look at the ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum, that is the government and regulators recognizing the asset class of crypto and putting it in a traditional wrapper, which institutions are now interested in investing in this asset class.
For
Right?
sure. Yeah.
So I also think that there are other jurisdictions that are a little more open to innovation. If you look at what Micah's doing in Europe,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of benefits. I'm a huge fixed income debt believer for
Okay.
this technology because it's all math that calculates this, which can all be codified and can be smart contracts and it can be automated. So I think that's beneficial. I think of what Project Guardian for the monetary, the MIA of Singapore.
All right.
Monetary investment, anyway, of saying down over in Singapore are
right.
amazing because they are pulling together. There's a lot of U.S. institutions that are working there in the sandbox within Project Guardian, working to testing flows and collaborating together. So I believe that that is another ground within a regulatory authority that works. So I do believe there will be pockets, but the U.S. is a financial superpower and will come through.
I believe that too. I smiled for a second there because I thought of the reason to me the Bitcoin ETF made its way through is because when the courts took a look at the way that things were being evaluated, they called it arbitrary and capricious. So I just recognize that it'll help with structure and guidance, having lived through the internet and what that turned out to be and the advantage that it's provided to the US of A. And so I'm optimistic that with guidance and books like yours coming out, it can help the regulators have better conversations, have better direction, some of which is in the book. And I firmly believe that once we get, and I like your thoughts on this, right now there is at the center of the crypto universe is a lot of legislators and a lot of lawyers, and they're entertaining and they're interesting and they're dynamic and they're challenging and establishing laws that will be used for generations. But right now that music, I don't know what chorus or verse we're in, but boy, it's been going on for a while now.
Well, I do think there's benefits. There's a stablecoin bill that's looking to come through. And I think that's a huge step as well, because the idea of having digital payments is much more efficient than what we have today. So
Right.
I believe I think of technology as a nonpartisan issue. I believe there's a lot of benefits that it worked for all of us. So I look forward to having smart regulation.
I like it. I like the way you said it. So let's talk about what the acronym that I am hearing flying around from all the smart people. It seems like every year at Consensus, there's a new dynamic in play. And this year, the one that if you're not using this one, RWA, that's where it's at. Have you been hearing a lot of RWA action?
So I feel like RWA got hot about a year ago.
Okay.
Before RWA is real world assets,
Right.
and the idea of tokenization. And so this is really kind of what I've been looking at since 2018. It originally was STO, security token offerings.
Okay.
Token was a bad word if we're looking, or it was a touchy word at that time because it was more crypto oriented.
Right. Coin versus token, that whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then digital asset securities is generally what I'll go by because I'm recognizing there's securities. There are real world assets that are not securities as well. But I do believe that if we look at the world of tokenization, one of the big wins right now has been treasuries, tokenization of money market funds and treasuries. I used to work at Arca Labs. We had the first money market fund that was approved. Look at Franklin Templeton. They've got a great money market fund. BlackRock came out with their money market fund. That's huge. BlackRock is they're the largest asset manager in the world, right?
Yeah.
And they have tokenization. If we look at the largest bank in the world by market cap, that's JP Morgan. They have a JP Morgan internal coin, and they have their
Onyx,
own.
yes.
Well, JP Morgan coin,
Coin,
but
their own.
Onyx is their blockchain.
All right.
But going back to tokenization, there's a lot of benefits that using blockchain can create through tokenization. So first is the funds. I think that debt will be tokenized as well. I think that a digital dollar is CBDC. I think that will take a lot longer in the U.S. because privacy concerns.
Sure.
It is working in other countries. If you look at China, they have a digital yuan there, but they also it's a surveillance state. They had WeChat and Alipay before, so two private companies were a majority of the payments there, and now that's gone to they're trying to decrease that to move it onto a CBDC. But I do think stablecoin will be picked. If we're looking further out in the next 2, 5, 10 years, I think stablecoin will absolutely be important in our day to day. PayPal created.
For
and
sure.
So that's definitely this is technically a tokenized dollar, but you can also tokenize. People talked about real estate for a long time.
That's
real
where I'm
estate.
going.
Okay, I'll
ask on the RWA, 2 to 5 years, you're looking out in the future. Which asset class do you think? And I lean into real estate. I'm not right or wrong. I just listen to people. But yesterday, I guess I was naive when I asked one of the people who had just secured funding, very excited, very enthusiastic. They said, we tokenize everything. And I thought, okay, we're going from like big chunks, like it's Google search and Google Maps and YouTube and the different divisions that all kind of collectively get together. What's your perspective on, and it may be real estate, it may be stocks, bonds, treasury. I don't know. Where is the RWA where are things headed in your mind?
Okay, so we'll break this down a little bit and look at, there's half as many public companies today as there were at Y2K, right? Okay. So there's not as many opportunities to invest in public stocks as there used to be because there are more private companies.
Got it.
So I think there'll be more tokenization on the private market side.
Okay.
A private market side being different things from private equity to real estate is a private market. I think we can dive a little bit deeper into that in a minute if you'd like.
Right.
But I do think that the private markets and the private opportunities is where we'll see more tokenization and opportunities there. Now, if you're tokenizing something that is not as large as a market cap as, say, Apple, it's going to question the liquidity, right? Because if it's a lot smaller, it's difficult. It will be more liquid than a typical private asset, which is hard to trade.
Right.
But it's not going to necessarily be as liquid as Apple.
Right.
I would think perhaps people would take these tokenized private investments and perhaps put them in an ETF. So there's a diversified tokenized product there.
Fair enough.
But I also think people are going to want to buy a share of, like they bought GameStop, they're going to want to buy a share of their game or this company or however, there will be the world of people wanting to diversify themselves or specifically pick themselves. But I also think there's the world of probably a lot going into ETFs.
Okay.
So let's looking at the wealth in the world right now, if we're looking at kind of the private markets.
All right.
51% of global wealth is in the hands of you and me, individuals.
Okay.
And then 49 is now in institutions. So that's shifted now that retail is higher.
Okay.
Now, think about stocks and bonds. When I studied in school originally, it was 60-40 stocks and bonds, right?
All right.
Look right now, 60-40.
MBA from Columbia, right?
Yes. This is probably going back to undergrad, but yes, I do have an MBA from Columbia.
All right.
60-40 right now, ultra high net worth, a Blackstone study or BlackRock study. I apologize. Okay. 60-40 traditional, alternative.
Okay.
Because the ultra high net worth have the opportunity to invest in alternative assets. This is private equity. And alternative assets have generally shown a higher return than the public markets.
Okay.
Right. So if you're one of these large asset managers and you want to increase AUM by, say, 20%, and they actually come out publicly to say how much they're looking at increasing,
to do. Yeah.
And they typically go to the same pool of money from the institutions, from endowments, from sovereigns, from different insurance companies. Well, they're not increasing their allocations by 20%. So how are they going to increase their AUM by 20% unless you think about going to the retail sector, which is now a majority of the wealth. And the retail sector, if you look at what happened with ICOs, which are initial coin offerings,
right. Another acronym,
ICOs were the global market in 2017 and 18, wanting an opportunity to invest in venture and alternative opportunities that they didn't have during the boom of tech boom, right? And so I think there's an appetite there for alternative investments. Now there was fraud and there was a lot of lack of regulation there. But the whole point here being is that I think you're going to need this technology for alternative assets to actually look at BlackRock, look at Franklin Templeton, KKR, Apollo, Hamilton Lane. They're creating funds and they're not creating them on, they're not digitizing or tokenizing funds from the bottom of their hearts. They're recognizing this shift of how do we increase AUM. I have not spoken to the senior leaders of these companies.
I think you're right.
Also,
right over the target. I mean,
look at the generations, right? There's a great wealth transfer that is going from baby boomers over to millennials and Gen Z, right? Sure. If you look at the chart, right, the baby boomers have about half of the world's wealth, right, or U.S. wealth, right now, and that is transferring over, and they're natively digital. Mm-hmm. Baby boomers and Gen Z. Not boomers, but millennials and Gen Z were born with a supercomputer in their hand, right? Doubt. The Apple, like their iPhone, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're used to digital. So I feel like the efficiency that technology, blockchain can offer them to invite more people into their funds, and then the demand side from these next generations, which will have the money, are interested in investing in alternative assets. So your question of where I think there will be opportunities, I think there will be opportunities in the private markets and alternative asset investments.
Fair enough. Makes sense. And you're going to have the growth characteristics of generational dynamics as well as the growth characteristics of the demand of the institutions to grow their business operations. Mm-hmm. So let's take just a second for you to talk about, you are with Kadina today, mm-hmm. an active growing company. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Just so that people know where to find you, or
sure.
if they have interest in reaching out in that regard?
Absolutely. So I was looking at where is there opportunities for growth and how can I push forward adoption in digital assets, right? For institutions and capital markets, which is really kind of what I'm passionate about. And so I really think there are Web3 companies that will actually grow. If you look at the data companies, sorry, I'm a little tangent, but if you look at the top data companies in the world, number one is IBM, and Google and Amazon are in there too, right? And that is not their main business. And so the thought process of in Web3, there will be opportunities for large companies to exist if they recognize business lines. Right. So I was really interested in the technology side. And so I met with Kadina. I'm the chief business officer there now. They are a layer one, which is a blockchain. Right, yeah. They're proof of work. Proof of work is similar to Bitcoin versus proof of stake. The idea was the two founders met at JP Morgan in the initial innovation lab there. This was pre-Onyx and creating blockchains for JP Morgan. And they came out and created a blockchain they thought that was the most kind of safe and secure. And it's the benefits of Bitcoin and Ethereum tied together for scalability, security, programmability, low gas, kind of low energy. Yeah. And so the goal is, it was initially built for institutional settlement. And my goal is to take it there. So we have not worked in institutions yet. We're looking at doing that. We went live 5 years ago. So we've been testing out the network and it all works.
Not financial advice, do your own research, but where on CoinMarketCap can they find your coin? I believe there is one. Is that right?
I can't say that. We do have a coin. Yes. KDA's utility coin that benefits the ecosystem. Yes. And I can be reached out to on LinkedIn.
I'm not a financial
advisor.
Reaching out
you
to
may
me.
be. I am not a financial advisor.
Right,
I have, and I cannot give investment advice.
There you go.
But I'm super passionate about this industry. I'm super excited about where this industry is going to go. I'm excited about what we can build, and where we're going to be in 2, 5, and 10 years.
All right. And so one of the things in the book too, I'm going to take it back to the book, and I'm going to give you a tough question here, and then I'm going to follow up with what I think will help close this out. But there is a lot of energy that went into what I'll call the FTX debacle. In fact, on our show, some of our most watched episodes are when we did a live broadcast of the sentencing for Sam Bankman-Fried. Michael Lewis has written a book about what's transpired. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the movie's going to be on Netflix soon enough. And early in the book, as you kind of capture what's transpired in this industry that we're in, you mentioned that FTX was like the cops at a keg party. Right. And the story's being told now by all the people continuously. And I quote, you said, not quote verbally, but quote in written word, it's time for the suits to run the party. What's your take on how the hoodies are going to respond? Maybe they want the direct.
Okay. So I look at this. So yes, I look at this in a few different ways. But really, if you think about the hoodies, have created this amazing market, $2.6 trillion market cap, and it is fantastic that they've been able to build this off technology. But I do think that as we progress and move into the regulated financial world more, you need the experience of the suits, which understand the fiduciary responsibility, they understand regulation, and they understand kind of the structure and growth, checks and balances, risk and compliance.
Yeah.
And so I look at the last 15 years as we can learn a lot from crypto in 15 years, and what can we take from that to move forward. So from an FTX perspective, I think it would have made sense to have a corporate board. I think there would have been more risk and compliance and reporting, which weren't there.
Right.
It's hard. It's easy to look back. You know, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do think there's a lot we can look back at and learn. If you and I won't. You know, there's been fraud in traditional finance as well. We've had the Bernie Madoff and other scandals.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So I can't say that this is just a hoodies thing. But I do think that we can make this go further if we work together.
Agreed, no doubt. And you know, when we're here at Consensus in 2024, we're walking around, we're seeing things. I'm going to ask you what has been your biggest takeaway or most impressive kind of conversation or dynamic that you've seen transpiring out there on the show floor. It seems like a lot more energy right now. We have presidential candidates, Senate candidates. I mean, there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of energy. There are a lot of, I mean, you can buy. The inflation apparently has not hit consensus because you can buy a hoodie for $10 downstairs. So just if you're looking for a good hoodie, come to Consensus.
I love it.
That was one of my big finds. How about you?
I love it.
What's your big?
I love the energy. I think Consensus is the best conference of the year, really bringing so many thought leaders together. I think the turn, I started in digital asset securities, we'll call them, or security tokens or real world assets, whatever you want to do, tokenization in 2018. And it was not sexy in 2018. Crypto was sexy.
Okay.
But what I love now is that recognizing that financial markets are so important with this technology and what it can do. That's kind of the theme of tokenization and real world assets. And so I love the conversations that are going on. I love that there's cooperation, right? There's like people getting together and working on how do we build this together, because none of us are an island. It doesn't work that way. Right. And so I feel like there's a lot of amazing energy downstairs.
Good deal. Well, we are headed back downstairs. There's receptions, dinners, conversations. It's a great place to be. There's a great book from Annelise Osborne that you want to check out. We'll put the details and where to get it on Amazon. Pre-order it today, or if it's past the launch date, which is
June 12th.
Go ahead and order it anyway. It's available in hardback, paperback,
I didn't
Audible,
get to read the audio. But yes.
You probably had publisher deadlines there.
Well, I didn't get asked. I was a little upset because Christian Carlo got to read his book, but it is, audiobook is ready to go.
Okay.
It's in all different formats.
And it's a great read. I personally endorse that. I hope our audience enjoys the book as much as I did, as much as the people at Consensus are enjoying it. Annelise, thanks again.
Thank
we
you
hope
so
to have
much,
you again
Jim. I appreciate
as a
it.
guest. Another great episode of All Time High. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you.
You on my mind a lot. Don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got